But now, it's our turn.
Okay, it might actually be happening. It might finally be happening. So Exclusive from Insider Gamer claims that a new Lord of the Rings game is in development. And it's not just any other Lord of the Rings game. It's not just a pure action game like the Middle-earth titles. It's not a Legos tie-in. It's nothing like that. It is a proper open world action adventure set in the world of Lord of the Rings, set in the world of Middle-earth. And the most interesting aspect of this is that it is specifically being designed in a way to compete with Hogwarts Legacy. And that's apparently a direct quote from the developers. Now, to be fair, if you can read past here, when contacted for a statement, Embracer, who are the people behind the game who bought the rights to Lord of the Rings, specifically for video games, claims that Embracer said that a general rule, we do not comment on rumors or speculation. And the same was said by Revenge Studios, who are the actual devs behind this supposed game. They also declined and commented that they do not talk on rumors and speculation. However, the thing is that a lot of the times when devs or publishers make those claims, like, oh, we don't talk about rumors, usually means it's because the rumors are true, right? Like I feel like a lot of the times when they absolutely have nothing to do with that, they would probably say something more along the lines of, this is false information, right? Like, we have projects in the works, we can't talk about them, but we can at the very least tell you that what has been rumored is false. And that's not what they said. They just said, oh, well, we just can't comment on stuff like this. Usually means it's actually probably true. So that's pretty exciting. Again, can't absolutely confirm it just because of that, but I feel like when people like this talk about these sort of things, it's usually because there actually is something in the works. You know, this feels too official of an exclusive for it to not be true. And to be completely honest, even if this particular rumor is incorrect, this Embracer group did not spend as much money as they did. What was it? Was it 400 million? I think is what it said. They paid nearly 400 million, yes, for the rights for the Lord of the Rings IP for video games back in 2022. I do not think that you would pay that kind of money and not attempt to make a Hogwarts Legacy type experience for Lord of the Rings, right? The Lord of the Rings equivalent to Hogwarts Legacy, right, which was like the dream game for Harry Potter fans. And that's the main thing I want to talk about today, is this decision for them to specifically compare it to Hogwarts Legacy is a big deal to me, because it's exactly what I've wanted for the Lord of the Rings franchise for literally decades. You know, me being a huge Lord of the Rings fan, just to give you a little bit of background on my feelings towards the franchise, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Jackson trilogy specifically, as well as even the older films, right? If you grew up with the Baskin films, the Ralph Bakshi film, or specifically the Rankin Bast, which was my absolute favorite growing up. I loved the Hobbit movie and the Return of the King film that they made. And then, of course, the Lord of the Rings trilogy is my favorite trilogy of all time. It's my favorite story of all time. It means the world to me and my family. Watch it every year for Christmas, annually, as I'm sure a lot of fans do the same. I've read so many people who do that same exact thing. It means a lot to a lot of people, and it means a lot to my family. And so naturally, growing up, you know, you probably remember those days, those very fond memories of being in school and just having those Lord of the Rings versus Harry Potter debates. You know, those were so much fun, you know, and it was, you know, funny mostly because, you know, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to enjoy both. But, you know, it was always like, oh, forget those pesky, boring kids, you know, swiping around their little wands. Give me a big sword and cut down orcs and go on an adventure to destroy the ring. And then, of course, as time went on, I finally, my, you know, egg essentially cracked, so to speak, where finally my older sister, watched the movies, full marathon with her friends, and then came back to me and my younger brother and was like, hey, you know, you got to watch these movies with me. I'm telling you, they're not as good as it's not as good as Lord of the Rings, but they are fantastic. They're ridiculously entertaining. And so we finally, you know, reluctantly rolled our eyes and we're like, fine, we'll give them a shot. And then by the end of the first film, we were like, so when are we watching the second one, you know, and just from there it was history. We fell in love with the franchise. That being said, despite me enjoying both of these franchises very thoroughly, I of course have much stronger feelings towards Lord of the Rings. And even though Hogwarts Legacy does sound very appealing, because I've yet to actually play through it, I'm sure I'll be encouraged to go through it once we go through our annual marathon for Harry Potter this October. I'll probably have the desire to go through it finally. But the main reason why, despite me being a huge fan of it, I haven't really had much of a desire to go through Hogwarts Legacy is mainly because my primary reason why I love the franchise are its characters. I don't have quite as much a strong feeling towards its universe, right? Hogwarts is cool and all, but I don't really have much of a desire to jump into that world and create my own Witcher wizard and live out the full fantasy, right? I want that more for Lord of the Rings, right? I like Lord of the Rings. I also love most for its characters, but I have a far greater interest in living out that fantasy in a virtual setting than I do the world of Hogwarts, right? It's like Middle Earth is just so much cooler to me as a universe. And so that's like the big thing, like them claiming that they want to be Lord of the Rings Hogwarts Legacy means that they're trying to do what that game achieved for Harry Potter fans, right? Like giving them that their dream game, right? Like every Harry Potter fan has always had those conversations with their friends and family about what school that you would go in, right? What house would you want to be in? Would you want to be in, would you want to go Slytherin? Would you want to go, Ravenclaw? Or just want to go full on hero and try to be, in Gryffindor and stuff like that? Like you have like all of those debates with your friends, and this game succeeds in giving you that, right? It gives you that chance to choose your house, go to Hogwarts, go to class and hang out with your classmates and talk with your teachers and, learn new spells, and then go out into the outskirts of this world and just live out that fantasy of being a Witcher wizard in the world of Hogwarts. And that's exactly the kind of experience that I want for Lord of the Rings fans, for us Lord of the Rings fans to be able to finally have something equivalent to that, where our dream is always, we want to explore the world of Middle Earth. We want to choose our race at the beginning. That's like the big one for me, is choosing my race and having that huge like inner debate with myself and my friends and family, and just being like, well, like who are you going to start as? Like this, like for your big first playthrough, like making that jump of, do I want to just represent my own race and be a human? But then you ask yourself, what kind of human do I want to be? Do I want to start in Gondor and serve them? Do I want to be a Rohirrim? Do I want to be like, a rider of Rohan? Or do you just want to be a wandering ranger like Aragorn was in the beginning? and then of course that's just human, right? Then it's like, screw that, I want to be an elf. I want to start the game out in like Rivendell, or I want to be like from like Lothlorien or something like that. And then, or like maybe you could even be an orc, if you really want to go like menace and evil mode and just raid towns and everything like that and cause havoc. You can maybe even start this game as an orc. I do not know the extent of the RPG side of this, because they do describe it as, I believe, just an action adventure game. But like I said, if it's going to compete with something like Hogwarts Legacy, you have the intentions to do what that game did for Harry Potter fans, but for Lord of the Rings fans, which is, of course, like I said, giving that level of freedom of what kind of fantasy you want to live out in this universe. And so it's incredibly exciting and incredibly nerve-wracking. I'd say the two major concerns that I have to end off this video is I'm very unhappy that it is this particular Embracer group that is behind this game, and they're making these claims of making this very ambitious to sounding title, because they, as it says here in this insider, is that this people who out those rights to the other companies to produce these titles, including the much maligned Lord of the Rings Gollum. So this is the group behind that abomination, and it's very unencouraging to see that, right? Because it's like, even though they paid this much money, and the person who started this claimed that they bought this because they wanted like a whole renaissance of Lord of the Rings in video games. And so naturally, hearing him have those kind of ambitions, and yet allowing something as terrible as the Gollum game to be released to the world, shows that it's like, do you really have like an idea of how to handle this very beloved property? It's like clearly not with these people. To be fair though, they have disbanded the studio. The studio are in fact like completely just done making games in general. They're just like, clearly this isn't our thing, right? And it's like more power to them. Like I'm honestly glad that they did that. They made that decision. It's a little sad, but at the same time, it's like they've just clearly learned that like we're not cut out for this industry. And you know, that's fair. It also shows that the people behind it were clearly aware that like this wasn't it. This is not what people wanted. We screwed up. This was a bad first attempt. And hopefully that means that they've truly learned their lesson and they can move on to better things like this Hogwarts Legacy, you know, type game, big action open world experience. However, my final major concern that I'll mention is the fact that this being handled by this new Embracer group means that Warner Brothers is obviously no way involved, which means that the game won't feature the Peter Jackson Weta Workshop art direction, which is a major concern for me. That's a major problem. It's not even a concern. It's just like a problem. We obviously know that they're not going to have that style, you know, because it's not owned by Warner Brothers. And even though Warner Brothers have had a lot of missteps in the past, and back very recently with stuff like the horrible, you know, Suicide Squad game and all of these great studios like Monolith who did the Middle-earth titles being disbanded, you know, they made a lot of mistakes in the past and very recently as well. They clearly still can produce some winners with Avalanche's Hogwarts Legacy. So I kind of would like to see them be able to craft a new studio to make a open world action adventure title like Hogwarts under the Warner Brothers umbrella, because that's the style of Lord of the Rings that I love most. That's the art direction that I prefer the most. So, and considering the style that the Gollum game went for, which was very unappealing to me, it is very concerning that this Embracer studio and whatever they happen to do with the Lord of the Rings IP, they'll go for a very like generic fantasy art design, right? That like will just look more comparable to something like, you know, World of Warcraft or something like that. So that's definitely my major problem with this being handled by someone outside of Warner Brothers. But it could, you know, anything can happen, right? I want to stay on the positive end of this and believe that it obviously, with like the mistakes of the Gollum game, they will stay as far clear away as from that art direction, which I found very unappealing, and go for something really, really nice and unique. You know, like there have been other people besides Peter Jackson who have managed to make the world of Lord of the Rings look amazing, right? As much as it should. So my biggest hope is that at the very least they take inspiration from some of the older artists, right, that portrayed the world of Lord of the Rings far before Weta Workshop and Peter Jackson did in the films, and they just make sure that it just looks as cool and as inventive as the series has always been. So that's pretty much, I'm not going to end up just going, like, I could literally go on and on about this. This is something that I've really been wanting literally since I started playing games, literally ever since I started engaging in the world of Lord of the Rings. This is the type of experience that I've wanted them to craft. And I can only hope that not only will we get confirmation on this soon, but with them claiming that it's been in development for many years, we could actually get like a proper gameplay trailer at some point in time. So I'm going to try not to be too excited about this because, like I said, there's a lot of that could go wrong here. But you know what? Avalanche Studios, the people behind Hogwarts Legacy, their track record is kind of hysterical because they've pretty much made nothing but like Disney licensed games, right? Like a Toy Story 3 game. They made a Cars 3 racing game. I think they made the old TAC games, like TAC 2 or something like that. Is that what it's called? TAC? Am I saying that right? They've done a lot of like very like basic like kid friendly titles in the past, none of which were like horribly developed, mind you, but like still much smaller projects, certainly not something up to the degree of Hogwarts, and yet they were capable of crafting a game of that magnitude that was both commercially and critically successful. So anything can happen with this Embracer studio. Anything can happen with Revenge Studios, who are the people behind the actual development of this upcoming Lord of the Rings title. Like I said, I want to stay positive, but of course, just stay vigilant, right? Like temper yourself, because this could go in one or the other direction. So that's pretty much all I got to say. Fingers crossed for a very hopefully close reveal is on its way. But yeah, we'll see. Keep the hope alive, right? Like if they want this to truly be a renaissance, as he claimed, for Lord of the Rings video games, let's hope that this is the first game to truly start that renaissance.